Welcome to Discovering. In early November, most of us are thinking hunting, but some unseasonably warm weather provided the perfect opportunity to hit the water for some late fall smallmouth.
There we go. That's what we came down here for.
And we'll get some tips on rod selection.
Sometimes you can only use one or two different rods, so you want to try to get something that fits a lot of different types of techniques.
Then we'll take a look at hydroimaging.
We have several hundred different patterns we can pick from.
That's all tonight, so kick back and relax. It's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill. The eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Unseasonably warm pre-deer season morning. I had thoughts of deer on my mind. Maybe do a little scouting, look for some scrapes. Great day for bow hunting. Then out of the blue, my friend Scott called and said, "You want to go fishing?" Thoughts of fishing in the early days of the month of November usually bring to mind heavy coats, warm boots, a chook, and fishing with gloves on. But on this day, that was not the case. It was almost t-shirt weather. With all of that in mind, I couldn't resist putting the pre-deer season activities on hold and hopping in a boat for one last warm day on the water.
Today we're actually on the Menominee River here. Fall's a great time to be fishing smallmouth out here. The bait fish are moving downriver, and what you're seeing is the bass are starting to school up. So what we're gonna do is try to find some fish suspended around bait off the main channel. They are pulling some water today, so the fish should be set up on the downstream sides of everything, all in a tight ball, so we're gonna give it a shot today. Tubes, crankbaits, probably some vertical jigging, so we'll see what we can do. Now the wind's pushing us straight upriver here, so what I did is I deployed my talons. They're holding us just upstream from this rock pile, so I can throw over the top of the rocks, not run my trolling motor, but the talons are down holding us in place. What we have here is the main current comes down off the river on the opposite side. It swings really wide and you have a big long feeding flat here. And if you look on the graph, we're seeing some bait fish suspended down between 4 and 10 feet of water. So I'm throwing a crankbait to try to get something down at that same level. What I'm keen on right now, and it's something we key in a lot this time of year on the river systems, is a lot of these old backwater areas. This is a backwater area that goes back in here, and there's a couple here across the river from us too. And the bait fish use these obviously in the fall. They get up there and they get in the little bit warmer water, and these bass will just follow these fish. And most of these old backwater areas here from the old logging days will have rock piles and old cribs from the loggings, and they'll have big pieces of wood out in front of it. So these fish are setting up on these rock piles out in front of these little backwater areas, feeding on the bait going in and out. So there's actually a lot of bait on the graph here, so we should hopefully do pretty well. Come on. Boy, I love these smallmouth this time of year. There he is. Yeah, come on up here, buddy. Pretty fish. Strike King coffee too, right in the corner of his mouth. We'll get him back. Those are fish suspended down there between 6 and 10 feet. Then you'll have them sometimes right on the bottom. You'll have that hard return that you can see them just laying right on the bottom. See, there's a fish right there, right on the bottom. That fish is laying right there. There we go. Oh, jumping. There he is. There we go. Cute little year class. Sitting out about 15 feet of water out here right behind a crib, right in the middle of the river, right where they belong. So we'll get him back in the water. There's one. This one's got a little bit of shoulders in him, it feels like. Oh yeah, nice fish. Coming up. There we go. Another beautiful Menominee River smallmouth. There we go. Well, there are definitely a couple fish on this corner. There we go. Oh, come off. That's a heavier fish there. There's a good one. There's a nice fish. There we go. That's what we came down here for. Boy, just a beautiful fish. Get a good release out of her. Oh, again, that Strike King coffee tube. Now we're talking. Oh, it come off. Well, he was right out here in the middle of the river, right on top of a crib. All right, buddy. We'll see you next spring. They are definitely on that corner. Is that a cute little one? Another cutie. Healthy little fish, boy. What we're fishing here is actually a downstream point. This is a really large flat that comes off from the main river system. And this is the old inside channel of the old original river. And what this is out here is there's actually a shell bed, and you can kind of see where it sets up, where the current break is, where all the leaves are kind of just being pushed by the current. And they're kind of set up just right on top of the weed bed that's right there. So you have weeds up on the top, and then it hits to the rocks, and then it drops down into the channel bed. And that's what we're fishing here. And what I'm doing is I'm taking this Strike King coffee tube with a 3/8 ounce head so I can throw it. I have 16-pound test Sunline braided line, so very small diameter, very thin, and I'm trying to make the longest cast possible to stay off the structure and stay away from the fish. So I'm throwing that a good 35 yards, 40 yards. And with a long cast like that, with the braided line, you can actually feel and you can actually control the fish at that length, where the monofilament would give you a little bit too much stretch and you won't be able to feel the fish bite. Feels like a little guy. Yeah, just a little guy. Sitting out here in 13 feet of water, just all by his lonesome. Obviously right now we're fishing a really deep channel swing here. There's a lot of dirt and muck on the bottom, but there's also a bunch of trees. And unfortunately, trees and jig heads don't mix very well, so I set myself up with 5 or 6 of them, just making sure I have them up on the deck so it's real quick and easy for me to tie on. I'm using 2 different size jig heads because if we get out of the wind like we are here, a little bit more protected, I can get away with a 1/4 ounce head. But if we get out there in the deep channel again, in the wind, I'll throw a 3/8. So you see all the fish just suspended off this other side here. We saw that on the side scan. We came down and they're just set up right on the outside edge of that. Oh, there's one. Oh, feels like a good one. There he is. Come on up. That's a nice one. Look at the markings on them. Okay, right now I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about rod selection. You know, guys that are fishing a lot of tournaments, weekend anglers, we all like to have a bunch of different fishing rods, but obviously sometimes you can only use 1 or 2 different rods, so you want to try to get something that fits a lot of different types of techniques. A lot of people will use a spinning rod, or sometimes they'll use a bait caster, and there's obviously pros and cons for each time, but obviously a spinning rod works great with what we were doing today, which was throwing tube jigs, and lighter or heavier tube jigs. My rods of choice are Kistler custom rods. They're actually made out of Magnolia, Texas. Everything's made in the United States, and they have many different rod lines. These happen to be the magnesium line, magnesium 2s. Now this rod here is a light, medium, heavy. So you see it's got a really good bend to it, lots of backbone, and a really nice lighter tip for throwing. I was throwing super line, so I was actually throwing, you know, Sunline. Braided line works really well with this type of rod, gives you lots of forgiveness. But if you want to drop shot, do some light jigging for walleyes, you might want a little bit lighter type rod. They make them in a medium or a light medium and give you lots of different ways to fish. Now as far as casting rods go, I throw a lot of stuff in the medium heavy to a heavy medium heavy, which gives you a little bit more backbone, especially depending on what you're throwing. Like today I was throwing the red eye shad today. I was throwing this one on a medium heavy fast action, so this one has a very, very fast tip on it. So only the top 13 to 18% actually bends. The rest is all backbone to let you horse in those larger fish, but still give you enough light enough tip to throw stuff. Very versatile rod, the medium, heavy, fast. I have more of these than anything else because you can use it with many techniques, spinner baits, anything moving type bait. And then also you go to our heavy action. This one here is going to be a heavier action. Same thing, this one's actually a heavy, medium, heavy. So again, very big, heavy tip on it, lots of backbone, but very versatile. But then sometimes you want to get your big bad boy stick out. I do a lot of flipping, a lot of heavy cover stuff. This is a big jig rod, 3/4 ounce jig. This is our KLX series custom rod. It's called a bad boy stick, real super, super heavy. I got 50-pound tests on here. You can pull a lot of big fish out of some big cover with this. It's a great musky rod, great northern rod, a great northern angler type rod. And then we also came out with the KLX Feel and Reel, which is actually made for just moving baits. So it gives you a fiberglass portion of the rod plus the graphite in the back to give you a little bit more forgiveness when you're setting the hooks and stuff, trolling, that type of thing. So obviously lots of different custom rods in the market. Look into them, look into Kistler rods, see what they can do for you. There's a big one. Right up on top of that point. There's our big one for the day. Or one of them anyway. Come here, little boy. Well, it wasn't the monster we wanted to end the day with, but still a good way to end the day on the great Menominee River. Well, everybody's thinking about deer hunting. Just remember, there's a lot of great fishing still available out there. Go ahead and check it out.
My son had the good fortune of tagging a nice buck this deer season and decided to preserve that memory with a European skull mount. The first stop is Northwood's European Skull Mounts and Taxidermy in Stevenson, where thousands of hungry beetles go to work and leave nothing behind but the skull and the antlers. From there, the perfectly clean skull will go just down the road to Superior Hydrographics Plus in Menominee for a quick dip.
So what we do in the hydrographic dipping business for deer skulls is we get a clean skull in, and actually we don't do any of the cleaning. All the cleaning has to be done before it gets here. We actually work close with Northwood's European Skull Mounts on the cleaning. They do the beetles, so it gets the skulls nice and clean, and there's still a lot of the skull left, so that works really well. But again, we don't do any cleaning here. We have to have clean skulls when they get here. This is what a skull looks like when it comes in, and then we take it from here and start processing it. Our next step is to tape off the horns so they don't get any paint or the dipping on them. And that's the next step there. They're taped off. The next step after that is we will seal the head with a sealer and then paint it before it gets dipped. When we paint the part, whatever it be, a deer skull, a gun stock, or a sample piece like this, we end up dipping it within a couple hours of painting it, so that the paint is still fresh on the part, and it actually helps the ink to absorb into the paint, so it creates a finish that won't come off.
It's off to the dipping room where Paul, Chris, and Matt work together to create a flawless finished product.
The reason she's cutting the edges is to keep it from rolling up when it gets on the water. So now we'll take the film and put it on the water. And we have to do it very carefully so we don't get any bubbles under the film. Matthew will get rid of the evil bubbles. We'll let that film sit on there for 60 seconds, and then we have to spray an activator on the film, and that basically breaks down the carrier and just leaves the ink, so the ink will transfer to the part. Once the part gets dipped, then we have to bring it over to a water tank and wash it off. And we have to rinse off all the excess film and activator. So after the part is dipped and rinsed, we'll hang it on this rack, and it will sit overnight basically to dry. And then we'll take it upstairs and end up touching up any imperfections in the pattern. So like if you've got little insets in a gun stock, you'll get little air bubbles inside of there. We'll touch all that up so it looks all uniform. And then the next step would be to clear coat it. Like on a deer skull, I would do a shiny gloss pattern. On a gun stock, I have a matte finish that most people want on a gun stock, so it's not too shiny. That just happens to be enough for a deer head. Once we spray the activator on it, the film will actually start to expand. The tape holds the film into a section so it can't expand too much and lose its pattern. Now he's waiting for the activator to take effect on the film so it is all set to go. When you see it get glossy like that is when it's ready to dip. As far as patterns, we have several hundred different patterns we can pick from. We keep probably 50 to 60 in stock at any time, and we can go anywhere from digital camo to skull patterns to wood grains. As far as parts, we can do just about anything, any hard surface, hard plastic, hard metal. We can do rims for four-wheelers, all the way down to light switch covers. And when you talk about durability, this is my coffee cup I use at work every day. This coffee cup is 3 years old. I've run it through the dishwasher several times. I use it every day, wash it every day. We do have an FFL here at Superior Hydrographics Plus, so we can take in guns and dip them legally. Also, when you look at a gun stock, you look at the durability, and we use an automotive grade clear coat on the finish, whether it be a gun stock with a matte finish or any other part with a shiny clear coat on it. It's an automotive grade clear coat that is durable as your car finish.
For more information, search for Superior Hydrographics Plus on Facebook or visit 906outdoors.com and click on Discovering. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.